Good morning. It is Monday, November 21st, 2022, and this is DC Signal to Noise. Since we last talked, the GOP majority in the House has been confirmed. Democrat control in the Senate has been confirmed. Russia agreed to extend the deal to allow shipments of Ukrainian grain for another 120 days. My Cyclones figured out another and quite frustrating way to lose a football game. And let's see, Jim. I know that there's one other thing that happened. What Oh yeah. Former President Donald Trump has announced his third run for the White House. It's coming in 2024. Welcome to you all. Glad that you're with us. I'm AgriTalk host Jim Flory.
And
That
I'm Jim Wiesemeyer.
is Pro Farmer Policy Analyst Jim Wiesemeyer. Jim, I want to start with some of the things from last week, and we talked last week about some of the fallout from the elections. It took a while to get to that confirmation that the GOP would have control, and and the GOP is still sitting with 218 in the House. There's what, four, maybe five other
I
seats
think
that are
five at last
leaning
count. Yeah.
Republican. Okay,
And Wasserman says it'll be between 218 and 222. So there's your,
you know,
there's your range.
here's one thing that I want to go back to on that, Jim, because Wasserman, all the pundits were taking a lot of heat on Monday ahead of election day for being so wishy-washy in their projections. Wishy-washy is exactly the projection that they should have had.
True.
They were right.
Yeah, true. His very initial call, well before the elections, was more accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So it's pretty crazy stuff. What's happening out there? Okay, let's get into some of the things that happened last week.
Sure.
Because it's it was in kind of an interesting week as the fallout from the elections we were starting to sort it all out. But when you look at what was happening at the White House with the president's trip to Egypt, COP27, the G20 meeting, he was on display again for the world. How do you think he did?
Well, okay. But COP27, as I wrote this morning, was very short on deliverables. They had a controversial fund that they established for very less developed countries, not including China, for basically reparations, and that'll primarily, Chip, I think, come from like the World Bank and other institutions like that. But they had a vote, and it didn't pass on phasing out, if not eliminating, fossil fuels, and that didn't pass. So very limited information came out of that.
As I've talked with three or four people that were at COP27. Now they were all involved in agriculture, of course, and the ag talks. They felt that agriculture had a much bigger presence at this round of talks than in the past. As a matter of fact, food had a pavilion, agriculture had a pavilion. On one hand, I find that encouraging because food and agriculture are part of the baked in conversation. Now, on the other hand, I find it concerning because food and agriculture are part of the baked in conversation at these meetings now.
Well, USDA Secretary Vilsack was over there. He had a briefer as well, and he has been consistent in being relatively positive on agriculture, specifically U.S. Ag sector's role in the coming, climate smart ag features, and there's legislative funding backup already for that, Jeff.
Yeah, one of the items that I believe you had in Pro Farmers first thing today: Biden's climate goals face rougher road ahead with GOP controlling the House.
Yeah, well, especially now that they can do more oversight hearings. They just want to know how did they come up with these grants and programs, and how did Vilsack tap the Commodity Credit Corporation Charter Act for what? About $3 billion more dollars. I don't think
Yeah.
they like that. And that's why I'm beginning to sense a movement here on the Republican side. If they get any increases in the new Farm Bill funding, it may not come from the CCC
Right.
because that depends so much on who's agriculture secretary. And so I
Right.
think they'll if they do get more funding, they'll put it in specific titles. In this case, Title One for a better farmer safety net.
Yeah. Um, I had a conversation with Glenn G.T. Thompson on Friday. It's going to air this morning on AgriTalk. And as far as there being concern over the funding for some of the climate smart farming projects that are out there and the source of the funding, you want to talk about careful in choosing words and how he talks about it. He was very careful.
Hmm.
And he knows, and we know why, because this is such a sensitive issue, but he's very careful to say, not saying that these programs aren't worthwhile, not saying that we don't need to see these programs and so on. It's just the source of the funding that is creating some angst
Yes.
among the GOP.
And I'm never reticent about oversight hearings. So at levels of
Right.
funding at for this program, there should be some questions asked.
Yeah. Oh,
They'll ask.
he was very quick to get to, there needs to be audits.
Yes,
There
yes.
needs to be audits. He wants some accounting behind all of these programs that have been out there, and he doesn't stop with he goes back to the MFP
Yes.
and says, listen, we need to find out and make sure that all that money was spent
Yeah, and there's
and
been some
issued
general
correctly.
accountability reports on
Yeah,
that. And even in the overall, even when Trump was president, the PPPs and all that, those were huge amounts of money. And you know
yeah,
that there's been some abuses of that. So yes, that they can and will, look at that. And you mentioned the Republicans have a small majority, and uh, the possible House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, Republican from California, said over the weekend, uh, a gavel is still the same size. It's not a
yeah,
smaller gavel or a larger gavel,
right.
depending on what you get. And he's right there. It sets the tone. The Republican Party will decide what gets considered
Mhm.
on the House floor, amendments, the House Rules Committee, and of course, oversight investigations.
Right, right. Okay, just a reminder to everyone, if you'd like to be part of the conversation or have a question for Jim or myself, go ahead and use the comments tab that is on your screen there someplace, and we will try to answer that for you as we go. Um, the UN, Ukraine, Russia, Turkey's probably involved in the conversation someplace, but they've extended the deal for 120 days to allow for Ukrainian grain shipments, Jim.
Yeah, I know the Ukraine and others wanted a permanent, extension, but
Mhm.
Russia wants to piecemeal this. And when you're looking, Chip, they are making volume updates on this. It's adding up now. So
Mhm.
I think all things concerned, it's probably at a higher level than people would have thought on
Okay.
actual exports, and that's good
Wow.
from a world food situation.
Yes, yes, absolutely, it is. We still, boy, be careful in how we talk about this. Was there any progress in increasing the supply of fertilizer coming out of Russia?
I didn't see any
Yeah,
confirmed language. No,
right. Yeah, I didn't see it either. I know that there were wire service reports that indicated it was part of the conversation, but I didn't see any final determination on that.
no, you know,
Yeah,
I want to see a communique.
exactly, exactly. You mentioned China, and there's another lockdown going on right now, Jim, and a COVID-related lockdown in China, and the crude oil market has been
Yeah,
falling
Yeah, on the
has been
demand
falling
concerns.
on demand concerns out of
Yeah.
China.
Yeah, and Xi Jinping reportedly was sat next to a high-level Hong Kong official. So I'm not saying he has, COVID, but boy, he sat for a couple of days meetings, with the Hong Kong official. Now, usually the equities market goes down a lot, and the futures are just barely just unchanged. So
Yeah.
I look for that as kind of a clue as far as from investment psychology. But the crude oil under $80, that's a
Yeah.
sign that they believe will have reduced demand,
Yeah.
and more talk of a recession in the U.S. I
Yeah.
saw that when I looked at my weekend reading.
Jim, we've got a holiday shortened week this week for the grain trade, for the livestock trade, for the equity trade, treasuries, everything because of the Thanksgiving holiday. But there is a pile of information for the markets to digest this week. We still get the Fed minutes on Wednesday
When,
afternoon,
yes.
and this is after one of the governors over the weekend, I believe it was Collins from Boston, was talking about, listen, don't take that 75 basis point increase off the table. That's probably what it's still going to be.
Well, there was some news about that from private analysts last week as well.
Mhm.
Don't rule out that 75%, 75, basis point
Basis point.
hike rather than 50. So that's going to mean more going into that December FOMC meeting. But what we'll get from the minutes, as you signaled, Chip, is any more nuances that would kind of better signal what they're going to do in December. What
Right.
exactly did they say?
Right. Okay. Um, the rail votes, the union votes, there were two more. Well, two of the biggest unions voted over the weekend, right?
Yeah, I don't think we have it yet. It's sometime today.
Yeah.
But either way, most of the participants are saying they will not strike until December the 9th. And one of them, they didn't sign off on the December 9th. They signed off on December 4th. But
Right.
again, if that's a $2 billion hit a day for the U.S. economy. So if you want to have a recession, that's the way to do it.
This is going to. It doesn't feel good, Jim, because we everyone please remember that the unions have agreed that if one union decides to strike, none of the union workers are going to cross the picket line. So
No.
that shuts things down.
Yes.
We are right on the edge of some serious issues.
Yeah, well, that's leverage. That's leverage. So, but then Congress can always step in and either announce what the Biden administration worked out for them. They can legislate a solution, but initially it would be a day trader's either delight or the other way, Chip, depending on how long it will take Congress to act.
Yeah. And this Congress, this lame duck Congress, I don't know how a still Democrat controlled House is going to react to a a call to strike from any union workers.
Well, I think it'll happen pretty quick myself. That's just my bias. And the overall new makeup, what I've been saying in my speeches, Chip, is I'm more prone to say it won't be a stalemate in the new Congress because think about it. The activists from both political parties, Republican on the far right, Democrats on the far left, they'll need compromises from both political parties to get anything done.
Mhm.
And you've got more than a few Democrats up for reelection in the Senate in 2024. So I'm a little more upbeat that it won't be gridlock. I mean, I'm not seeing legislative potpourri, but I think we're going to have the meeting of the minds on a number of cases. And on one, I hope really happens is on border and immigration as linked. The Republicans are going to insist on border security. And once that occurs, you could get some immigration reform. And that would be
Okay.
good for the labor market. We'll see if I'm right.
I don't recall exactly who it was, but last week at the National Association of Farm Broadcasting down in Kansas City, uh, one of the broadcasters who is a regular listener to Signal to Noise said, "Boy, is Jim really serious about thinking that we're going to see some immigration reform?" Well, I jump in the vehicle, I head home, and Friday on the free for all, you, you were basically saying,
Yeah.
listen, it feels pretty good that we're going to see some progress on immigration reform. Where's this optimism come from on this?
Well, I just think that whatever time period there will be on a new Congress, it may be very fleeting, but that's the time to act early next year. And
Okay.
again, it's going to have to be a gimme and get, and we're
Yeah.
going to test the psychology, if you will, of a split government. But this total gridlock analysis of most people, I just don't agree with, because I went back and looked at prior very close Congresses, and there were more than a few things done. So, and it's not just hope on my part. I learned a long time ago, and
Yeah.
when you work in Washington, you just can't hope. You know,
Right.
because
Right.
you've got one foot in the grave, right there. It has to have some stuff, substance in it. But that's when I look at the election in 2024, that they're going to have to show that they can work together. Because I think one of the things out of this midterm elections is many Americans are saying they're tired of both, political parties, and they're tired of the gridlock. Either yes from one party and no on the other, or vice versa. So
Yeah.
I think on major things that they're looking at. Plus, you want to stop all those people from coming across the border. Even the Democrats will say that privately. And
Yeah.
so if you get border security, the Republicans will not move without first border security, then some immigration reform, DACA,
Okay.
etc.
All right. Very good. Very good. Anything else looking back at last week or over the weekend that you feel we need to bring up?
Well, you brought up the China COVID thing. You brought
Yeah.
up other aspects. No, I really, I think we hit it.
Okay. One thing I realized that we've had a signal to noise since President Trump did announce, but that was I feel like it's just kind of sinking in now. What do you make of it?
Uh, I think he announced too soon. Myself, the analysts that I respect are saying uh, he's worried. I think it's a sign not of desperation, but a sign of he knows it's not going to be like the last time he ran because of people like DeSantis, etc. And so um, and let's face it, look, between now and the end of the year with the holidays, he's not going to get much coverage from going in early. And a number of the big donors in the Republican Party are saying no way when it comes to
Right.
Trump again. So
Yeah.
I think he's got some big negatives going on.
Yeah.
But he wanted to go in early, even before the December 6th runoff race in the Georgia Senate race, Chip. So again, but hear me get strong and clear. There's about 30 to 35% of the Republican voters out there who really like Trump. So that's a big segment. The key to him, he wants as many people to run for the GOP presidency as possible, because the more that runs, the greater
Yeah.
the odds that he
Yes.
he will get it. But I think the others in the Republican Party are going to try to narrow it down to two others plus him, and then he's got a race.
Yep. Okay. Adam's got a good question here. Which political ideologies get neutered in this process in order to get governing consensus? Seems like the farm bill will be extended rather than any real change. What are your thoughts?
On the farm bill, I'll tell you, the veteran farm bill watchers, including myself, This will be my 11th farm bill, and there's only been 19 forever.
Yeah, and you do know that they're done every 5 years.
Well, mostly it's varied over the time period. Sometimes 4, etc. But
Still a lot of years.
yes, the
To-
veteran analysts think that the Senate uh, will get done with a new farm bill. They're not so sure on the House. Now, I know G.T. Thompson, I don't know whether you asked that specifically,
Oh
Chip.
yeah,
He
very
wants a
much.
farm bill by the August recess this year. I mean, in
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah.
Other people say he's got new members, new staffs for those members. He wants to do some hearings. He's got the leadership to have to contend with. The Wall Street Journal has a story on the farm bill today going through all the issues that we know, but it's primarily food stamps. And they quote different Republicans of wanting to put some work requirements on it. As long as they're not draconian, that could give a compromise on that. But if you don't have the vast majority of Democrats signing off on whatever comes out of this new farm bill on food stamps, food and nutrition, you're not going to have a farm bill, and you'll have a
Right.
1-year extension, period.
Right. Well, I want you to listen to the conversation with G.T. Thompson this morning, so I'm not going to give you everything, but I will give you this. He doesn't consider an extension an option.
Wow. Well,
So
sometimes you're forced.
I
Yeah,
that's right.
I understand.
That's
As
right. But the
far as
way things
others, political ideologues, the most sensitive, there's two sensitive ones in that regard. That would be market sensitive. It would be funding the government for the remainder of 2023. That started October 1 fiscal year. And if they want an early test of wills, you're going to have the talk about shut down the government. I don't see that happening. But the other major one is the either suspending the debt, the 30, I think it's, well, we've got $31 trillion debt. I think the limit is 31, almost 32 trillion, 31.8, I think, 31.8. But the Democrats want to get this solved, again, suspended or increased during this lame duck session that we're in right now. The Republicans want to wait until early next year because they think they have leverage. Now, I'll tell you, in the past, when the Republicans wanted to use leverage on a debt increase or suspension, it has not gone well. So those are the two really, I think, some of the most important issues.
Okay. All right. For the week ahead, don't forget we've got some adjusted trading schedules for the grains, for livestock, for the equities. Today's an important day for two turkeys from Monroe, North Carolina, Jim.
Yes, yes.
uh,
And let's predict they'll be pardoned.
I, yes, I think they will be pardoned.
And the
White House
Christmas
Christmas
tree, yeah,
tree.
Wednesday.
It arrives.
Wednesday.
Yep.
When I worked downtown, that was always a fun time to look at. I would go each
Yep.
time. Now I don't want to take the trip down.
On a more serious note, new home sales report on Wednesday morning, FOMC meeting minutes.
Wednesday.
We talked about that. Come on Wednesday afternoon. And of course, Black Friday. With
Black
the
Friday and weekly
spending.
export sales, normally out on Thursday, is out Friday. The commitments of traders report will not be released this week. It'll come Monday. So those are, and we'll have limited trading hours on Friday.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Don't forget that. It only took $600 million in funding, but a company has gotten FDA approval for lab grown chicken. And the company said that it could start pumping out 50,000 pounds of no kill meat products every year.
Yeah.
Took $600 million of investment to get to 50,000 pounds a year in production.
That seems, yeah.
We're solving lots of problems there, aren't we?
The ratio is not good, but it's just like electric vehicles. We'll get that cost down. It takes a while. But your key phrase there was no kill. That's their marketing, spin on that one. No kill.
Absolutely. All right. Today on AgriTalk, as I've mentioned, we've got Congressman Glenn Thompson from Pennsylvania. And of course, we've got Machinery Pete. This afternoon, Darren Fry from Water Street Solutions. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Really appreciate you listening to Signal to Noise every week. Thank you so much for doing that. Have a great week and keep watching for those signals.